Alrighty. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are actually starting early today in an effort to make up for the time we lost yesterday. So, welcome to the stream. I think we are live on both YouTube and Twitch, so it looks like everything is good to go there. So, we're going to be picking up where we left off yesterday, in that we are sort of closing the refactor loop. I did get some more stuff done off camera, so I have a little bit of a visual update. So we'll go over that in just a second. But before we do, I just want to take a quick second and thank the supporters of the channel, starting with our elite partner, who is Javier Lazaron. That is the highest tier of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon. And then right below that is our partners, who are Furkan Tokan, Gerbolis Inc., and Matt Osgard. I can't read today. Thank you guys very much for your support. I would also like to thank everybody else listed under the supporters section here. They are a combination of the other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships, Patreon, as well as Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. I greatly appreciate it, and it helps me offset the cost of hosting this project, like hosting fees, software licenses, things like that. So any and all support there is greatly appreciated. And speaking of any and all support, this project would not exist without you guys, the viewers, whether you're joining us here live on YouTube or Twitch, or whether you're catching the VOD after the fact. Thank you guys very much for being here. Without this, without each and every one of you guys, rather, this project wouldn't exist. So, thank you guys for being here. All right. Along with that, we are actually going to have to expand our episode numbers to 16 bits today because we hit U8 max. And so for those of you who aren't following what I'm saying, we are on episode 255 or 0xFF today. So, anything over that is going to have to be represented by a 16-bit integer instead of an 8-bit. I just thought that was funny. I thought of it right before I started the stream. I'm like, oh, that's actually a pretty funny episode number. So I thought that was amusing. All right. Lazy Man, how's it going? First time you joined on time. Yeah, I'm actually starting early today, so that's even more amazing that you're able to join right from the start. RCW, good to see you. Hello. I hope you're doing well. Okay, so we are good to continue. So what I'm going to do, actually, is I'm actually going to pull up our debugger really quickly here and show you guys where we're at. So I did a little bit more troubleshooting offline. And so now when I run this, let's see. Let me kill some breakpoints here. I thought I got rid of all of them, but apparently not. I'm going to, let's see. I think we can actually, I'm going to disable that one. All right, so we get tons of validation errors, and I know what the problem is there. At least I think I know what the problem is. But we do have our window open, and we are drawing again. So we obviously see that we've got some shader issues to figure out, but the engine runs again. So this is a huge, huge step in the right direction, and it's been a long time coming. So if we examine the errors that we're getting, we are, I believe they're all the same. In fact, you know what? Let me just open up the log file, actually. So what this is actually stating is, and you know what? I'll space this out so you guys maybe can read it a little easier. Here we go. So let's see, object. So this is just giving me all the object information, including the super long name that I set there. Okay, and the descriptor set, blah, blah, blah. Here's the name of it. I'll space this down a little bit more. Okay. So, one of the things that I believe is super valuable is being able to interpret error messages, right? So we're going to do that now. And I already pretty much know just by looking at this what this error actually is, but I'll go ahead and walk you guys through it. Because I know that there's some of you guys here who are new, haven't necessarily seen this, and these Vulkan errors look pretty intimidating, right? But if you take a step back, it's really not that bad. So the first thing that it does is it gives you the object that it's talking about, right? And actually, even before that, there's one thing I missed here. It's specifically what you're trying to execute that is causing the problem. So in this case, it's a draw command, right? So we're doing a vk command draw indexed. And it's using this handle here. And we actually have a name because we are using debug names, so I know exactly what this is because of the way that I've chosen to name this. So we actually have the object name here, we have the object type here, so we know it's a descriptor set, right? And then we actually have the error message down here. So the reason I named this the way I did, and this is really long, right, but it contains a lot of information for us. So it tells me it's a descriptor set. It tells me it's for a shader called shader UI. It's the per group frequency, right? And it's frequency ID 7. And it is set descriptor set index 1, meaning, it's the second one because 0 obviously is the first. And then it's image index 0, right? So that's number of swap chain images, right? So just from naming this the way that I do, this is one of the reasons that I name this thing, is because I can unpack a whole bunch of information from here. Just by looking at the name alone, I know exactly where in code this problem is. And so when we go down here, we say, okay, we've got command draw index, that's throwing an error, the descriptor, VK descriptor set, and then this handle, and you'll note that this matches this guy up here, right? So this handle is what we're talking about, and then this is mentions it again here. And then it gives me the name again. And then it also gives me some additional information here that I think has been added in relatively recent versions of Vulkan. I don't think it used to be quite this verbose, but it does give me some information that I was able to extract out of here. So it's descriptor set 1, binding 0, which I did not have here, right? So we know we're talking about the first binding, index 0, variable. So this is the variable in the shader code, right? And so it's our SUI group UBO. So we know now exactly what we're talking about. So we know that the per group uniform buffer object for the standard UI has an issue, and it says it's being used in a draw, but has never been updated rather via VK update descriptor sets or a similar call, right? And I'm pretty sure that this is just repeating itself. Let's see. No, actually, there looks like there's. Oh, okay. I've actually clipped off part of the error message. So this is part of the error message here as well. So let me space that out a little bit. So a lot of these Vulkan errors will actually give you what the specification states and a hyperlink to the spec, to that part of the spec, right? Which is super helpful. So it says descriptors in each bound descriptor set specified by VK command bind descriptor sets must be valid as described in descriptor validity if they are statically used by the pipeline, bound to the pipeline bind point used by this command, and the bound pipeline was not created with create descriptor buffer bit extension, which we did not. So this is the graphics bind point, right? That's the only one we're using right now, so we can make that assumption. And basically, it says that it needs to be valid, right? And valid basically means what this is saying up here is it has to be updated. So we can click into the spec here and read that, but I was able to surmise from here exactly what the problem is. So if we move this out of the way, I think the problem is right here, right? So we're doing a check here against the UBO descriptor state generation for a particular image index against the UBO generation that we pass in as an argument, right? And I suspect that the update with this just is not working correctly. So what I'm going to try and do, and this may lead to more errors, is I'm going to actually kill the check itself and try running it without that check and just always have it update, right? Because that's really just an optimization. We do have to be careful not to update it more than once per frame. But yeah, we'll see where we wind up landing with that, right? I'm just going to undo these changes to the console log. maybe. All right, you know what? I'm just going to delete it, actually. Perfect. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and run this again. Okay, so it's still giving us errors. So let's kill this and see what that is. That may not have, like I said, it may actually wind up causing another problem, but we'll see. Okay, those are just asset errors. I'm not too concerned about those. Here we go. I should probably search for validation error, right? That's going to be the one that we're really concerned with. So I'm actually going to space this down. And again, we're just going to kind of format this out a little bit. So we have descriptor rights. Descriptor count must be greater than 0. So that's interesting. Why did we hit? Are we not incrementing? Okay, so our descriptor right count only gets incremented if we actually have uniforms, right? Let's see. And so if we go a little bit further down, this is where we are binding all the samplers and textures. And then descriptor right count is there. I'm actually going to get rid of all of this dead code. And I did hear a ding there, so I'll check chat in just a second here. All right. This says, though, if descriptor right count is greater than 0, then we do a VK update descriptor set. So I wonder why that's actually done that. It's a good question. All right, let me catch up with chat. I'm doing pretty well, RCW. I appreciate you asking. Next one will be a very simple roundup episode, 0x100, exactly. Yep. Yeah, we've expanded to 16-bit now. George Smiley Face, how's it going? Welcome. Thank you for the follows, some dev and Charlie Sheen. I appreciate the follows. Thank you. All right. So my question here would be, this is bleating about descriptor count. Oh, descriptor count must be. Yeah, descriptor count. Oh, it's update count. Oh, okay. So if we don't have an update, how do we get? I wonder if that's for this first one, right? We have, this one's always set to 1. So update count is 0. Binding image infos. So we basically are, okay, so just a description of what we're doing in here, just in case you guys forgot, because it's been a while since we've looked at this code. Some of it's been changed. Essentially what we do here is, since we changed to having the separated sampler and texture, we now have to sort of count both of those up via a sampler and image count. And that will give us the total number of descriptors we need. So we create. Oh, wow. Thank you, Anonymous Gifter, for the 10 community subs. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that support. That means a lot. Thank you so much. And guys who got the, if you guys are in here, if you got the tier 1 sub, I guess thank Anonymous Gifter. But yeah, thank you so much for that. Very, very much appreciated. Okay. So what we're doing here is we're essentially we have to, even though we're doing samplers and images, everything technically still goes into a VK descriptor image info. It's just what properties we fill out differs. So what we do is we set up a array of those for the count of both, right? So we do an assertion here where we say we have the sampler and image count, right? And that count equals that. So where do we get that count from? That count comes from us taking the sampler indices and the texture indices and combining that into a single list. And so what these sampler indices and texture indices are is as we are processing the uniforms when we're setting up the shader, every time we come across a sampler uniform or a texture uniform, we keep track of the uniform index, in other words, its position in that array, with these two arrays. And that way we can reference them quickly and we don't have to like loop through all of the uniforms every single time. We can just loop through this list. But since we are handling it this way, all in kind of one shot, not only do we need the separate lists, but we need the combined list, which is what we're doing here. So what we do here is we sort that list. So we create the list here, we add everything to it, and then we call quicksort on that, right? And that basically just sorts them according to their indices, right? Just to make sure that they're all in order, so that way when we reference them in the shader, they're in the right order. Okay, so we have a basically a counter that we also use as the binding index for samplers and textures, and then we essentially loop through that count, and for each one of those uniforms, which we get from the uniforms array using that sorted list, we then go ahead and say, well, is this a texture? If it's not, then it's got to be a sampler. And then if it is a texture, we fill out the information accordingly. And if it is a sampler, we fill out the information accordingly, right? So for textures, we use image layout and image view, but we don't use sampler. And in sampler, we use an undefined layout, which is basically not using it. And then no image view, and then we use the sampler, right? That's the only difference, but they both use the same structure. And so we basically loop through those things, fill out those structures within that array, keeping track of the update count along the way. Now, I suspect our logic here is getting in the way too, based on the error message that we just got. So I'm actually going to turn that off as well. We're just going to always update that until we actually figure out what's going on. So we're going to do that one and that one. And build again. A standard first time chatter, welcome. How's it going? Nivy me, good to see you as well. Yeah, that was a super awesome anonymous gifter. So whoever did that, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It actually kicked off a hype train too, which is it's been a while since I've seen one of those, so that's cool. Okay, so we've built that. Let's switch back to our debugger and run again and see what we get. Okay, no errors. Now, this is not rendering correctly, which is fine. We could figure out why that is. But we get no errors, right? We can actually... I can't tell if the text down there is actually changing or not. It's really hard to tell. Because of the dark color, it's really hard to tell. But, you know, we can bring down our debug console and stuff. So it's looking good so far. I suspect that we're probably just not binding the image correctly, or there's something going on with our image loading that's just not... You know, like our button can be hovered over and all that kind of stuff. So I'll bet our console works either as well. I can type exit here and it quits, right? Okay, so we've got some issues on shutdown too. We'll have to sort that out, but we're making progress, right? All right. So let's think about this for a second. So these essentially were never updating, ostensibly because the generation always matched, which is kind of making me rethink the generation thing to begin with. Maybe we really should be going by frame number, right? The only drawback to that is if we go by frame number and we have to actually update it more than once in the same frame, like for like a multi-render or something, that's going to be wrong. So we may need some sort of way to tell outside of that. But what I'm going to do is, it seems to work like this for now, so I'm going to put a fix me in here. Only update this when actually needed. The generation logic below never passes. So I'm going to put one there. I'm going to put another one here. And then up by our UBO updates was another one. All right, so we'll put a pin in that for right now, just to kind of get things up and running, and then we'll optimize afterwards. Let's see, nice stream. What desktop environment is that? So this is Cinnamon running on Arch. And the reason I like Cinnamon is because it actually handles mixed DPI displays really well. So the screen you're looking at here is actually a 4K screen, but the ones I have on the sides are just regular 1080p. And a lot of Linux desktop environments don't handle that gracefully, at least X-based ones. Wayland ones handle that a little bit better, but Wayland's got other issues. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. It's text on my end. It looked like some sort of grunge smear. Yeah, so it's actually really tiny. It's really tiny, like text, like bitmap text. In fact, I'll show you what it's supposed to look like. Even though we're working on fixing it, right? It's actually supposed to be. It's supposed to be like that, right? It's basically just a bitmap font that's being rendered, and it looks like it's only rendering the first line, which is also really weird. But we will we'll circle back to that as we can, right? But yeah, that's what it's supposed to look like. And you know, the box that you see over here is supposed to actually have, you know, like a transparent background, a button in it. You'll have seen in the log text where it actually shows I'm hovering over the button, and then some more text on top of that. And then there's a debug console that pops down. But none of that stuff is rendering correctly, so we've got to figure out why. So my thought on this is probably going to be in the maybe in the standard UI system, or actually probably in the UI render graph pass. So this has also been extensively reworked. In fact, what I could do is I could take the fragment shader and we have our Atlas texture here being sampled, and that may not be working correctly either. I might not have that fully figured out. But let's do out color equals vec4 1.0. Right, and then I'll turn everything to white, might make it a little bit easier to see. So let's go back to our debugger. Oh, didn't like that. What did I do? Did I forget a semicolon? Really? I did. What a dingus. There we go. Yeah. And it is changing, actually. Looks like maybe our new lines aren't working correctly, because you can kind of see it there. It's changing. So we know that our vertex shader works, and it seems like our fragment shader works. The only thing that I'm guessing the texture is just missing, right? Because everything, like all of our quads and stuff here, apply as normal. So actually, what I might do, let's try. I don't know that this is going to work, but we'll try it because I haven't updated this in a while. We're going to try good old render doc. All right, so we've got render doc here. I'm going to capture a frame. And I'm just going to nuke this. It's just going to technically crash, but it should still be fine because I caught the frame. Next stream will cause 8-bit integer overflow and we'll be forced to start everything from scratch, update size for episode counter immediately. Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was joking about when I started the stream. That's why I named it the way I did. Because we're going to have to expand to 16-bit. Hardest bugs to fix are those that do not show warnings errors. Yeah. So the fact that it was showing up all black before I overrode the shader to actually change it to white, which I need to actually back that change out. The fact that it was doing that actually tells me quite a lot. That generally happens when you've got a texture in here that isn't sampling or isn't provided correctly, because that usually comes out to be black, and then you multiply anything against it and it winds up being black because it's 0, right? So that's usually what will wind up causing that. Okay, so I want to take a look at... Oh, interesting. We do have the shader load, or the texture loaded. But it's upside down. Okay, this has got to be a asset issue. So one thing that our old loader did was we had the ability to pass in parameters. And one of those parameters was to flip images on Y whenever we import them. And from what I'm seeing here, if we actually, I can click into one of these. This is our image, right? But it's upside down, right? It should be flipped vertically. It's correct left to right, but top to bottom, it's backwards. And if that were flipped on the way in, it would be correct. So generally, images are stored bottom up, and that's the way that they're loaded using stbimage, unless you actually flip it. And so that's the reason it's showing there. I'm guessing whatever logic we put in place to actually pass along that Y flip is just missing or not correct. Have lots of those errors at work lately. I understand that. Trying to make a program that can send 10 million messages per hour via TCP, running into some GC issues because too many objects are being allocated and deallocated too quickly. That sounds like an object pooling thing, right? You probably want to use an object pool for that if that's the case. You know, set up a pool of, I don't know, 10,000 or something, or 100,000, however many, I don't know how, whatever the rate may be, and just, as you fire them off, just keep cycling that memory and just never release the memory. But yeah, that's, it's kind of what I'm thinking. Let's see. Kohi engine stream epoch. Trying to bring back Y2K trauma. I know, right? Feel for you, I had a nasty alignment issue in my engine this week that I was very lucky to find. Yeah, so I've had a stupid amount of those. And I expect more, for sure. We did just rip out the entire asset processing system, so I'm totally not surprised. Pre-allocate memory all the time. Yeah, that's what we do in this engine as well. Yeah. Most of the allocations are byte arrays for sending messages, so I might just allocate a big buffer and use that to read and write and read spans, but we'll see. Yeah, exactly. Some sort of a pool is what you're going to want there, I think. What is GC? Garbage collection. That's what I'm assuming it is. Yeah. All right. Abhinav over on the YouTube side. Hello. How are you doing? Galactic Past. Hello as well. Welcome. Okay. Yeah, one of the many reasons I don't like garbage collectors because they're expensive. And they get in the way for things like that. Okay. I think what we need to look at, I guess we'll work our way from the, I think it was the image importer. So the image importer is what we use to import like JPEGs or PNGs or Targers or whatever from disk. And we use that then to translate that to, right now at least, uncompressed RGB8. We're eventually going to add compression, right? And we then essentially blit that to disk in a proprietary format that the engine understands. So in our case, that is, if we take a look at the assets under, well, actually, it's going to be under testbed. We take a look at these assets under images, right? It's an image asset. We have all of these KBIs. So those are Kohi binary images, is what those are. So that's our sort of proprietary format, right? It's got some header information and some good stuff in there. But our source images are all in here, right? So those are the Targos, the PNGs, the JPEGs, all that stuff. So we import from these and we export these KBI files, and then this is what the engine actually loads, right? And so the importer actually is external to the engine. It's actually in this utils library here. And it's only available to the core engine on a debug build. And so when we go to have a release build, all that will go with the release is these KBI files, right? So I suspect, like I said, the issue there is probably it's just not flipped. So the way that works with STB image, which is Sean Barrett's image header-only library, right? It's one of the other only scenarios that we're actually using a library. And again, it's external to the engine. We use that because I just didn't feel like writing like 1,000 image decompressors and stuff like that, right? That's really time consuming, and it just didn't have the value in the project, right? So we kind of cut a little bit of a corner there, but it's a corner that I'm okay with cutting. All right, so our import options, I believe we do have a flip Y here, right? So whenever we have, and we actually have a set of default options as well, right? So if, let's see, options is 0. So if we don't pass import params, right, we automatically set up this to flip automatically, right? So essentially the only time that we would want to, or that we would really need to provide these import options is if we want to not do the Y flip or choose a different image format, which for right now we only have one. So if we look a little bit further down, that options is used here. And so we have wait a minute. STBI set flip vertically on load thread. Now this used to be multi-threaded, and it will be again, but I wonder if there's a no, I guess that's the only one. Okay. There's some functions that are meant for like different threads, and I was wondering if that was one of them. Okay, so this should be doing that. I guess let's do asset importer image line 55. Let's actually open up the debugger, and actually, I think what I'm going to do, specifically for the UI texture, and that one is actually under here, under the plugin standard, right? I'm actually going to delete this so that we re-import it. I hate how it bounces me around like that. So that was under, where did it go? This is core. I don't want that. Here we go, UI standard. Okay, so we're going to take the source image, which is going to be the standard UI atlas, right? This is the way that it should look. And so we're going to re-import that and see what we get. But let's go ahead and put, I think it was 55. Yeah. Let's go ahead and put a breakpoint here. Because I want to see if that flag is actually coming through properly, because I suspect it's not. Oh, interesting. It didn't even import that. Or it didn't even hit that. How is that possible? How did that not? Did it import, though, is the question. It did not. So the import was unsuccessful. So let's check the console. Log. Also, what is all this stuff all of a sudden again? This makes me think we are using the wrong image. And what makes me think that, so we have validation error, right? Descriptor set, blah, blah, blah. Image view, internal Vulkan swap chain image 2, right? And then it's complaining about update descriptor sets. Image view was created with image view transfer destination bit, usage color attachment bit, but descriptor set is sampled image. If it's sampled image or combined image sampler, it must have been created with sampled bit. So it's like it's trying to grab the swap chain image and sample it for some reason, which is woefully incorrect. And I'm going to assume that's probably due to an invalid handle somewhere. So we're going to have to look into that too. Let's see. Oh, there's a big discussion going on in here. I think it's good to start with OpenGL so that you won't get overwhelmed at the start, but I do not have the experience to back that up. I mean, I would agree with that, actually. Vulkan is very verbose, but fairly routine in its methodology. That is true. Hardest part of Vulkan for me so far has been learning enough of the graphics programming to make it do something. Ain't that the truth? Yeah, I would also say so OpenGL is very much like a state machine, right? Like when you execute an OpenGL command, you can basically expect it to happen essentially right then and there. Whereas Vulkan, you sort of have to queue a whole bunch of stuff up and then execute it at a later point, and then the order of operation on some of those executions isn't necessarily all in the right order because the driver can optimize it, and it's all stuff that you have to kind of think about, whereas like OpenGL doesn't have any of that. And there are ways that you can control that, and Vulkan gives you the way to control that, but yeah, it gets kind of crazy sometimes. using GL in my engine. It's easier than other APIs and also quite fast. It's much better in terms of compatibility in versions than DirectX. Yeah, I'll give you that. Feature set is complete. I don't think we'll get a Next.jl version. A few extensions tops. Easier to use than DirectX. Didn't learn Vulkan. From what I understand, Vulkan is the OpenGL fine, kind of. It's kind of a successor to OpenGL, but I wouldn't call it OpenGL 5. Yeah, it's a completely different beast. I mean, it's a Kronos thing, right? So like the same committee that made OpenGL made Vulkan, or at least the spec, right? But yeah, OpenGL is deprecated, right? It's not getting any more versions. It's not. I doubt it's going to get. I mean, it might get plugins from, or extensions rather, from graphics card manufacturers, but it's not going to get like ray tracing and stuff like that. Vulkan is super nice though if you want to learn more about the GPU and how the driver makes it work. Absolutely true. Yep. Tire device is exposed and you manage it all. Super interesting. Yeah, the biggest problem I have with Vulkan is actually descriptor sets, because that's not actually how it works under the hood. And it's a weird abstraction, but descriptor sets are kind of annoying, to be honest. Other than that, though, yeah. Worst choice you can make is the passive choice, where you don't start because you feel unprepared. Whether it's GL or Vulkan, starting today is 100 times better than starting in a month because of your doubt. 100% agree with that. I say that all the time. Just make something, right? 100%. Thank you for the follow, by the way. I appreciate that. Also, it's stable now. People are still fixing bugs and Vulkan drivers. I haven't run into a Vulkan driver bug in quite a while. Other than with things like the Mesa driver that has bugs, but I don't consider that Vulkan's fault. I consider that the driver's fault. Usually at the first steps, you need to see the results of your work immediately. In this case, you need to learn to use OpenGL. But after you choose the tool that you need, OpenGL is still a good API for graphics programming, even if it is outdated. Especially when you're learning the concepts. I agree with that. Yeah. Stick with OpenGL for now. Yeah, that's fair enough. And when you get relatively comfortable with it, meaning you've made like a renderer or 2 or 3, then kick over to Vulkan, right? I would shudder to have to deal with it without 15 plus years of doing graphics. It took me a while to wrap my head around, that's for sure. Metal is a nice way to start right now, I think. Too bad it's Apple only. So we're actually going to be doing that at some point. Vulkan is just one of 3 backends that we're going to have, rendering backends we're going to have. So we support macOS via MultiVK, which is basically a translation layer from Vulkan to Metal. But we're eventually going to write a Metal backend and support it natively. OpenGL is deprecated, yes. Yep, it's not getting any more updates or anything like that, yeah. Question, why did you make so many changes for weeks on end and now look for what fails and error checks instead of at the moment? Genuine question. Because it didn't compile. Because I ripped it apart that much, that's why. So we didn't have... The problem is the way that assets and resources were handled before, it was kind of coupled. And they were all handled very ad hoc, right? And very different and not uniform in any way whatsoever. And that was kind of due to the way that we initially structured things, having to do with like the tutorial format and that kind of thing, just to get things up and running as quickly as possible. But that has a cost, right? And the cost is eventually at some point you're going to have to rip the Band-Aid off and redo that stuff. And so all the work that we've been doing here is because of that, right? And I decided, I'm not just going to piecemeal it because that's going to be really annoying. I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off and just rip the whole system out and redo it. And so that took a while. It was a lot of code, right? And we're still not done with it. We're still fixing issues, but we're getting there anyway. Is it bad that I start my graphics programming journey with Vulkan? Not if you think you can handle it. It's just that the issue with starting with Vulkan is you have to understand the API, all the concepts behind that, which there are many and they're advanced, right? And then you also have to understand the general graphics programming concepts as well on top of that, plus memory management and things like that, because Vulkan gives you a lot of control over that stuff. So if you're not afraid of that, jump right into it. Okay. I think I'm caught up on chat. So let me see what all of these errors are about, because I'm pretty sure we didn't have those a minute ago. Let's see. Okay, there's all of our system fonts, our bitmap fonts. Okay, compiling shaders, loading up some sounds. More shaders. My logs are very verbose at the moment, by the way, just because of all the work that we've done. We're going to be getting rid of a lot of this verbosity at some point, but let's see. Okay, more shader stuff. These are woefully wrong too. I don't know what happened there. Okay. Oh, right. So we were essentially, we're for some reason using the swap chain image, which I just happen to know is the internal image ID 0, because it is the very first image that's created. It's the very first texture that we create. And so it's always the first. And so anytime I see errors having to do with the swap chain image that doesn't have to do with swap chain stuff directly, that is why. So my question is, we haven't done a clean build here in a second. Let me just verify that this is still a problem before I dig into it too much. Do you have any recommendations for where I can learn graphics programming concepts? Yes, I do. There are 2 books that I recommend, plus some other stuff. So the first one is Real-Time Rendering, and it's by a whole bunch of people, right? There's a bunch of people on that list, but that's what the book looks like, right? And I think this is the 4th edition. I don't know if there's a newer one or not, but that's what the book looks like. This is a really great resource. And then this isn't as much graphics programming, but it's game engine related stuff. Game Engine Architecture by Jason Gregory is another one I recommend all the time. So both of these books are pretty thick. They're at least 2 C's thick, right? Maybe even bordering on 3. But they're fantastic resources. If wanting to dive into OpenGL, you can check out learnopengl.com. If you want to do Vulkan, you can check out vkguide.com. Those are all really good resources. And that's just a start, right? Let's see. Game engine architecture book, would you say it's also good for general software development besides game engines? It's kind of specialized, right? There's some stuff in the very beginning of the book that you could probably pick up and use elsewhere, right? Some of the more generic stuff, talking about memory management and things of that nature, optimizations and that kind of thing. But yeah, it is mostly targeted towards game engine development or game development. Legendary books, yeah, they really are. OpenGL's Super Bible is pretty good for OpenGL. I've never actually read that book, believe it or not. OpenGL, I just kind of was able to jump in and figure it out. Okay. I'm going to put a breakpoint in the callback, the debug callback, for whenever we get an error, a validation error. Because I want to see, I suspect it's an invalid handle causing the problem. Let me move this down one line. All right. Yeah, same issue. Okay. So update descriptor sets. We might not be able to tell without stepping through this, actually. But one thing we could do, if we take a look at, I believe we have the shader here. Yeah, we have the internal shader. So we can grab the name so we can find out what shader it is. Let's go here. Okay, it's shader UI. That's what I was thinking it was. So it's the UI shader. Oh, I'll bet I know what it is. If we go to the render graph node, I'll bet it's happening right here. So let's see what it's binding here. Specifically, so this is the Atlas texture, right? Which is width and height are 0. That's suspicious, right? But ooh, look. Did I call it or did I call it? Render a texture handle, the handle index, and the unique ID are 0. So, how did we wind up there? Because this basically looks like it's not even loaded. Did we get any errors about image loading? I don't think I saw any. Something there about a control being foobar, but that's not a huge deal. Okay, so let's look at where this is set. Okay, so UI render graph node set Atlas is only called from testbed main. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here, and I'm going to continue. Probably have to do this a few times. More than a few times. Here we go. All right, so our standard UI state Atlas texture, sure enough, has an invalid handle. So why is that? So this is where we load that. I had a breakpoint here. I thought I had this fixed, but apparently not. Let's turn these breakpoints back on, and we're going to relaunch. Okay. So let's go ahead and just, I'm going to skip over this for now. Aha. So it's not able to load the primary asset path. Do we not have... Is there nothing set up in the asset manifest for that? There is. So it should be images source texture standard UI Atlas. Let me make sure that that name is actually correct, because it might not be. So images source texture standard UI Atlas PNG. It's probably correct, but I'm going to do this anyways. Nope. That looks correct. Okay. Failed to load binary asset. Oh. I think I might know what this problem is. I think this is actually caused by something else that I fixed. Okay, so if we take a look at Let's see, it's going to be the image, right? Image handler. Let's see, binary image serialize. Release asset. This goes through the standard handler. Was it the importer? I forget. I don't think it was the importer that was broken either. Okay, so texture. So I'm thinking, oh, you know what? It could have been in the it might have been in here too. I don't think so though. I don't think it was in the let's see if I can find. I'll bet the user callback isn't being made correctly, or maybe it's being made too soon. This right here. This onloaded callback. This was something that I had to add because when we loaded up binary image assets correctly, they were not making the user callback correctly. And that's because it basically wasn't going through this chain of commands. So I'm actually thinking we have a success here. Let's see. I wonder if we should use is it parse failed maybe? Invalid name, invalid package. I wonder what failure we're actually getting here. Let me actually, let's put a debug breakpoint there. So asset system 298. Because I want to see. Let's see, we'll put it right here. And I'm actually going to go into, you know what, I'm going to kill all of these real quick and actually just add just this one. And then in standard UI system, I'm going to add one back here and here. Right, because I'm going to want to disable this one until we make that other call. This one. And I'll turn that back on. And now we should land here. So what result are we getting? Okay, so VFS request file does not exist. That's what we need to handle. Because the primary file does not exist. So let's see. So if the file doesn't exist, do we have a way I don't think we have a way to actually trigger the secondary load from here. And I'm wondering if it should. I feel like we handled this elsewhere, though. So I'm actually wondering... let's see, that's going to be asset utils, I think, is where that was. Yeah, on asset loaded. Do we have... We do have a user callback here. So maybe this is the problem. Maybe we don't actually need it here. Right, maybe we disable that for now. Disable this. So let's walk through this real quick. So if we have a success, that we know works. So we want the alternate case. If the primary file doesn't exist, try importing the source file instead. This is indeed the result that we're looking for. So if result is file does not exist. We make another request. This time passing get source is true. So the context is passed through again, which should contain the user callback. And then this should call this again, essentially calling itself. And then the next time we come through here, we should hit this. So, okay. Let's walk through that scenario real quick. So, on asset loaded, we're going to do, let's see, source asset loaded. Is this the right 168? Yeah, I guess let's start at the entry point so we can see exactly what's going on. And then let's also on handler result. I'm going to get rid of that one and then keep those two. Okay, so let's disable this one. Apotham, how's it going? Good to see you. Welcome. Also, always read docs. Yes. Especially for Vulkan, if you're going to use Vulkan, read the spec, and then read it again. And then implement something, and then read it again. And then implement the next thing, and read it again. Ooh, interesting. So we did not hit that breakpoint, which tells me that we are not using the base on asset loaded. Okay. I'm guessing our asset handler image is doing something special, maybe? Let's see, do we have... request asset. We don't actually have a request asset here. Asset handler image create. Why do we not? So if we don't have request asset, I think it falls through to a generic version of it. User callback is info callback. Not material system. Material. Request info VFS callback versus why is this commented out? Probably shouldn't be. Oops. That might have been the disconnect, actually. Yeah, I'm just using this as my debugger, right? We actually do most of our coding in NeoVim. All right, so this did get hit this time. I'm going to actually let this proceed. Let me actually turn off all my breakpoints. Did it do the thing? Okay, it looks like, did we... Let me double check the asset to see if that came through. I'm thinking the asset importer actually worked this time. Yes, it did. There it is right there. So there's our imported asset, right? Our source and then our imported asset. So that worked. I guess I'll have to do render doc again. So let's do this again. Don't want to save that capture. All right, I'm gonna grab this. Let's see if our image is at least the right way around this time. I do hate it. I do. However, the reason that I'm stuck using it is because it's the only really decent graphical debugger that's cross-platform, that's consistent, right? And I don't want to use one on Windows and a different one on Linux and a different one again on Mac, right? Here it just kind of works the same way across platform. It's the only one that really does that. So, unfortunately, I have to use it for that. I don't like it, but it is what it is. All right, so, wow, our image is still upside down. Right, that's the whole thing I was trying to debug, and we got sidetracked. So, what we need to do we're going to nuke this again because I want to see what happens on the import process. Yeah, we want to move that, and then actually I think it was importer image. Yeah. Flip Y. Here we go. I want a breakpoint right here. And I want this breakpoint and this breakpoint back. And I think I can get rid of that one, and I think I can get rid of that one. All right. So I'll turn that one off until we hit this, and then I'll turn that one back on. All right. So run this. All right, now we're trying to load the Atlas texture. I'm going to turn this back on. Skip to it. Now we've hit it. Flip Y is true. And so we did load it down here. Interesting. So we are setting this. The flag did make it through. I am thinking that that's the issue, by the way. I'm thinking that's why everything is showing up black. Because if we look at this image here, it's black everywhere else, right? It's technically a transparent image. It's fully transparent, as you can see here, except for these spots there. Although if it was fully transparent, we shouldn't get black, we should get nothing. So I'm still going to have to figure that out. But anyway. I'm pretty sure that this is not flipping correctly, even though I'm telling it to flip. I don't think there's anything else in here that uses that, right? I think it's literally just that way. I guess let's look at, do we have anything else that is loading in? Okay, now the shadow map is failing for some reason. I think it's going to be just a little bit of this round and round debugging until we actually figure it out, right? Which is way better than it was like before stream, because it didn't run even before stream. I got it running like 5 minutes before stream. All right. Let me relaunch this real quick. Get rid of these. I still swear that that looks semi-transparent, but I could be wrong. I don't think it's sampling correctly. I think that's the entire issue. Let's dig a little bit further and see if we can't figure out. See if we can't figure out what is going on here. I don't want that. I need this guy here. Yeah, we're zoomed out, so I don't understand. Where is the... internal Vulkan swap chain image? Isn't that... It's interesting that it's not actually displaying now, because it was displaying when we were looking at it earlier, I thought. When we captured it. Let me capture a new one. What kind of what kind of crazy PDF is 900 megabytes? Yeah. That's nuts. Imagine debugging an OS. I mean, I think through where did it even go? I think through a virtual machine it would be the way that you'd have to do that. All right, let's grab this. Is it just crashing now? I guess it is. Yeah, it's crashing after the first image. That's neat. I wonder if it was because I had the other instance open and it just used. I know Linux drivers don't like that sometimes. Might have been that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's what it was. Did it not? There we go. Okay. I'm pretty sure that had. Let me change this shader back so I can see a little bit better. Let's go to here. And let's just. Okay. Let's try this again. QEMU for plus GDB for OS debugging. I actually hate the OS debugging pipeline. Yeah, I can only imagine. Okay, so yeah, the stuff is showing up white. When I capture this, see the preview here shows white. But when I open the preview, now it's making a liar out of me. All right. All right, so let me close this. All right. Thank you for the follow. Welcome. Let's see. So we need hello, RenderDoc. What are you doing? Why aren't you giving me any outputs? There we go. Help me understand this. The preview of it has this written to it, but when I actually pull up the texture, it does not. We have our inputs here. No output. That is beyond bizarre. Because we're obviously drawing things to it. Do we have any sort of... Yeah, here's the draw calls right here. So we're actually drawing... Oh, wait a minute. This might actually be... So it's drawing in the right position. Maybe it's just fully transparent. Yeah, it's fully transparent, which would make sense if the image is flipped. That would actually make sense. Well, actually, for the text, it's not going to show anything at all. This is what would really make a difference. But that's also backwards. So y is... Why is that still coming in upside down? That is what I'm not understanding. I mean, I suppose I could do something stupid. I could go into the fragment shader. Oh, it's already in there. Let's see. Atlas texture, Atlas sampler. So we have the texture coordinates. Am I doing something stupid with that? I don't think so. I guess I could just flip it in the shader for now. That's a terrible hack, but... It's a test anyway, right? So I could say tc.y equals 1.0 minus tc.y. Inverting it like that might do it. Let's see what it looks like when it runs. Oh, you know what? I'm not going to be able to tell because it's white. Let me try that again. No such luck, it looks like. It is interesting, though. It shows up black here. It shows up white when I change the shader, right? But in this render dot capture, it's completely transparent. Like, there's no depth or stencil testing going on that's killing it. No backface culling. Right? Like, I don't see anything. Our quads are positioned correctly. It's just not outputting it, and I don't understand why. It's probably going to be something extremely stupid. I know it's going to be something extremely stupid. I guess now that I've modified the shader, I guess let me grab a new capture and see if it's any different. I don't think it's going to be, though. Mm-mm. Render doc has a theme. Oh, you know what? You're right. I forgot that they added that. Sorry about the flashbang. Another flashbang. Where is it? Dark. There we go. That should be better. Yeah, it's still upside down, which is bizarre because, well, there's two things that are going on that's really weird. Our Atlas image is coming in upside down, which it shouldn't be. And our output does not have anything written to it, right? We can see that, like, if we put the draw call in here, we can see that the stuff's being drawn, right? And if we look at the preview, we can actually see it shows up in white here. But like when we actually click into the texture itself, it's not there. And I think that's going to be true for, let me get rid of this one. Not understanding that. Like, it's not depth test, it's not stencil testing out, right? The green means it's successful, that it's not getting clipped. Eyes can relax, yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. I completely forgot to actually change that back. How long have I been coding this? So I started the series 3.5 years ago, I think. But, you know, it's only up to twice a week that I actually work on it. So, speaking of that, by the way, I don't know if we're going to be streaming next week. Maybe on Thursday, definitely not Wednesday. Maybe on Thursday. Because it's Christmas next week. So, are other shaders failing the same way or only UI? I suspect the others, well, I can't, yeah, I know for a fact when I go to load, like if I go to load anything, it's going to just poop itself. Guaranteed. Because I haven't tried any of that actual stuff yet. You know what? Let me try resizing real quick. Okay, that doesn't work either. So we got a lot of issues to fix. Started in 2021. Yeah, that sounds about right. So it's almost 4 years then. Well, I think I started early, like, what was it? January or February 2021? Or was it? Yeah, I think so. Okay, well, we get a scene loading error. This one I can actually fix, though. That's usually pretty easy to find. That is due to a change in the case and parser. Let's see. Get object. I think it's... I think it's this one. All right, so if I load, yeah. So this right here is being treated as an object. We didn't used to have a separate array function, so there's probably a few of those in here. I've been having to fix them sort of as they pop up. There's another one. right? So array. Another one. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking was going to happen. Let's see. So here we're loading up a skybox. Command pipeline barrier was called before. Begin command buffer. Ooh, I think I actually know what that one is. Where was that? I think it was in the forward render graph node. I think. Where was that? I think that was in here somewhere. Might have been one of these fix me's. I thought it was in here. We disabled terrains for now. I had a note in here somewhere where I moved something around and I wasn't sure if it was going to work. Where was that? I'm trying to remember what I actually left myself in terms of a note. I hope I didn't nuke it. I might have done, though. I thought I had. Wasn't it like was here or something? I forget exactly what it was. Now I can't remember. I could have swore it was in the forward render graph node. Does this give me any inclination as to where it is? Doesn't seem to. All right. Begin rendering. I think there was something that I had set before a begin rendering that I wasn't sure that could or should actually be done that way. Maybe I fixed it though. Oh, you know what? It might have been in the material system. No, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it doesn't make sense though to be here. Oh, the text coordinates valid. That's a good question, actually. Yeah, I'm gonna put a pin in the scene loading for now because I think that's gonna be a little bit more in depth than we're kind of getting off track anyway. So that's a good point. So I guess let's do pipeline state. blow this up a little bit. Looks valid to me. Yeah, I think all the vertex data is correct. I think what the problem is, I think it's the way the image is coming in. Atlas sampler. Atlas texture. See, it's pulling the correct thing, but it's upside down. And I think that's the entire problem. I guess let's take a look and see what is in the different UBO objects. Okay, so the view, that makes sense. Projection actually looks valid too. It's in the group UBO. Just diffuse color. Oh, wait a minute. That might do it. Right, we have a diffuse color with a 0 alpha. Okay, that might actually be the entire problem. Although why this is set to 156, I'm not 100% sure either. Model matrix looks valid. I wonder if that's part of the problem too. And actually, didn't we change that to be called something else? No, it is diffuse color. Okay, so I guess do we even set that anywhere? Looks like we do use it in here. Group data, diffuse color. That's in the render data. Let's try hard coding this real quick. Let's do oh, wait a minute. What should we do? We should probably only if I hard code that to all ones, then it's not going to be transparent as it should. Let's do I guess I'll split this up, right? So we'll do we'll put this here. Color is that, and then we'll do out color is diffuse color RGB. Wait, yeah, RGB. We'll convert this into a vec4, but we'll use samp color.a and then samp color here. I think that makes sense. That way we're not like completely nuking it. I mean, I suppose I could like hard code it to 1.0 just to see if it works, but all right, let's and that's with flipping the texture coordinates, which I think is why we recaptured this actually. None of our geometry looks foobar. No, that all looks pretty good. GL position looks correct. Text chord. Okay, I guess let me try. No discernible difference. Um, 3 years, 10 months, 4 days. That sounds about right, honestly. One question that's bothering me, is there an upside of using ARGB, XRGB format instead of RGBA, RGBX? Good question, actually. That's a really good question. Not that I can think of. Not that I can think of. Okay. Text coordinates match content of texture. Yeah, they should. So none of that logic has actually changed. I suppose what we could do, just to verify that, well, let's see. I guess I could go into the maybe the panel. Let's see, where are we doing? So generate UVs from image coordinates. So I suppose I could hard code this, right? Generate UVs for height of the image, pixel position. Oh, the mins and maxes. Okay. Let me do. We do this, and I'll do a xmin equals 0. Actually, xmin equals ymin equals 0. Xmax equals ymax equals 1.0, right? Hard code those things, because that should theoretically make the entire texture shrink down to that one spot, just for the panel. Yeah, see, it's still not coming through. So I think we've got some other form of skullduggery afoot here. Let me take a new capture, because you never know, that might be, there might be something we can deduce from that. turn the draw call back on so I can actually see what's being written. I think it's this one. So vertex input, the texture coordinates. Yeah. I mean, that all looks correct to me. That's exactly what I...
Travis. Long time no see.
Taman, how's it going, buddy? Thank you so much for the Prime sub, first off. But how are you doing, man? It has been a minute. How have you been? Hope things are well for you. Okay, so I know it's not texture coordinates that are foobar. I guess what we need to do is take a look at the history. One fragment touching pixel. I think I went here, right? Yeah, obviously it made no difference whatsoever. Primitive. So the shader output. Show failed events. Yeah, I guess we'll debug, right? Let's step through the shader debugger for this pixel and see what the heck, if we can actually figure something out here. So Atlas texture. Let's see, sampled image. Sampled image. There we go. Okay. Here's the texture coordinates. Here is where we are. I think that's where we actually are flipping that, or did that happen up here? That happened here. Okay. So here's where we actually sample the image. So 38 is going to be the sampler itself, and 40 should be the texture. 40 is a pointer to 39. Oh, that's the texture coordinates. Okay. I'm wondering if I've got like something foobar with the actual sampler. Like maybe the sampler is just not doing the thing. I'm beginning to wonder about that actually. So out color is 57, so 55 and 56. So that's composite construct and sampler color. Okay, so that's this is what's creating that vector 4 that we created, right? So we have the RGB of 51, right? So here's that swizzle happening. Okay, so this is just building that vector 4. This is grabbing the sampler color. This is multiplying the two of those together, saving it here, and then that output's there. Okay, so the value that came back from the image sampling is nothing. Okie dokie. That would be the problem, I think. I think it's just not... well, it's either not sampling... You know what? You know what would make this really easy to debug, actually? A lot easier, anyway. Let me go into... do I really not have any photo editors installed? I guess not. Boo. All right. Let me install one real quick. I guess we'll go with GIMP. No GIMP, no way. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Arch is like when you install it, it comes with nothing that you don't tell it to, right? All right, so we want to open. Let's see, this is going to be under. We want the UI plugin standard. I actually have the XCF file here. Funny enough, I think I'm just going to open the PNG though, because I don't want to modify the actual source file. And I'm just going to do. Let's see, foreground color fill. Let's go with something really obnoxious, just to see if we're actually like doing the thing, right? Flashbang, pink flashbang. I know. All right, so let's save that. Export. And we're going to export that, replace it. Sure. Okay. All right, just make sure we got the right one. So, yes. Okay, so I'm going to delete the binary image. And that should re-import. Methinks there's a problem with the sampler setup. Just saying. That's got to be what it is. We can take another render.capture just to be sure, right? Naturally curious, first time chatter, welcome. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for the kind words. While I don't focus on game dev stuff, your Vulkan C++ or plus C tutorials rather, dyslexia kicked in hardcore there. Tutorials have really helped me with C for embedded. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Taman, I'm doing pretty well, by the way. I know I'm kind of deep in the throes of debugging here, so I'm kind of not looking at chat probably as often as I should. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good. All things considered, you know, can't complain. Let's have a look at the draw call. I need to bring that back. I think it was this one, right? So if we take a look at, actually, I think I could just look at the history of the pixel, just like I did before. And we're actually going to debug into this guy again. Right, so what I'm interested to see is what happens with this sampled image right here. Actually right here. So the value of this, oh, we did get a color back that time. Which that looks to be about magenta. Okay. Okay, so why didn't it actually display, right? Because we actually wound up with the same result as before. So we did sample the image. You can see here RGB, right? This looks about magenta-ish to me if I were to do that in my head, right? So we save off the sampler color. The diffuse color is just that, right? But I think we only actually take the RGB and A, or the RGB from that, and we plug in 1.0 from A, right? So that's what we're going to do here. And then 56 is grabbing sampler color, and then 57 is multiplying 55 and 56, which is sampler color and that new vector 4 that we made. So we multiply those together, and it's completely murdered it. What am I missing? Right, because the sampled color came back correctly. That's what this did right here. All right, maybe I'll just remove. Maybe I'll remove the diffuse color altogether, and we'll just put output sampler color, right? Let's take another capture. H. Mendoza, how you doing? Good to see you. Any reason why the... Whoops. Chat scrolled. Hold on a second. Any reason why the name Kohi and the program window is Japanese? Yes. That was a test to ensure that the UTF-8 encoding worked in the windowing system cross-platform. So, because we wrote our own platform layer and interfaced with the windowing systems correctly individually for each platform, so Windows, Linux, Mac. And so I wanted to have some UTF-8 text in there so that we're sure that it works across the board, and it does. So that's just really it's really just a... why is this over here? It's really just a test for that. Interesting. It was the dang diffuse color killing us the entire time. Because look, we have our button. So... I think I remember what that was doing now. I believe the way that this panel worked is it used the diffuse color to achieve a little bit of transparency, if I remember how I did that. And because we were multiplying it with essentially black, that's essentially what was causing that problem. Okay, so there's a couple things to note here. So it looks like our Atlas texture is actually loading in correctly now, which is good. It's using the wrong sampler, which is expected because we haven't actually set that up yet. So you'll notice here that it's got some linear interpolation here, and that should be nearest neighbor, right? So we do have to make that configurable. Currently, it's not, so we have to fix that. Not a huge deal. And then it's also using this same atlas for the text here. And this text, this is bitmap text. It should have its own texture used instead of that. It should be like a texture, an atlas override, right? And I turned that functionality off because it was causing problems for me. So I'm actually going to try turning that back on to see what we get. All right, so I'm actually pretty satisfied with that. So let's go ahead and shut that down. I need this one. All right, let me run this through here real quick. Just make sure that it works. It does, okay. The drop down. Yeah, see the panel. Oh, you know what? The panel where I set those texture coordinates is probably these are both panels, and it's probably being hidden by this button. All right, let me actually undo that change before I forget. Oh, you know what? I didn't rebuild. Or did I? I must have. Okay, so that seems to be working too. It's pulling the correct part from the image. Okay, so that's good. We do need to sort our text out. We can see our other UTF text showing up here. That's the quads for that. So that is good. And as I type here, you can see that pop up. So we are making headway, slowly but surely. Sorting out the issues one at a time. All right, so I believe this was in the render graph node. Atlas override, here it is. Okay. Overruns don't seem totally valid. I'm going to move this down here and let's see. Actually, I just want this. And I can turn that line off. Now, before, I wasn't getting an actual valid texture in here for the override, but maybe that's fixed now. Guess we'll find out. If not, we'll have to investigate why. Okay, yes. That looks fixed, right? So we are indeed getting our text here. Looks like we've got some sort of issue down here, some sort of other issue happening there. Right? We can see that the text is actually being drawn. It doesn't look exactly correct at the moment for some reason. But again, I think we're reading in the wrong texture somewhere. Maybe for the bitmap font. Probably for the bitmap font, actually. Yes. Right there. So what is it trying to actually... Command execute commands. Okay, so this happens way after the fact, so it's going to be kind of hard to nail down which one is the problem. But since it looks like system fonts are working, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's bitmap fonts that are probably foobar. So let's do a search for the Atlas override. That's where we apply it in the render graph node, so that's probably not going to be where it is. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be the only place that it's going to exist. All right, so it looks like the system font override is going correctly. So this one, I'm guessing, is just wrong. Well, it's either wrong or it's somehow also backwards. Oh, you know what? this, that's actually interesting that this worked. Okay, so we're still inverting the Y. And it worked for the atlas, right? The UI atlas, which tells me that that's backwards. And it also worked for the system font. Let me see what is actually being captured. I think I still have. Let me grab a new capture that's actually valid. Okay. This is bizarre that it doesn't show up in the image output here. I wonder if I've got some sort of bug with RenderDoc. But regardless, so we can take a look at least really quickly at what our atlas looks like for system fonts. And this one is right side up. For, let's see, so that's the atlas, the UI atlas. Here's the bitmap font, and it too is upside down. So I suspect this one's correct because we're generating this on the fly, right? Like as we use characters and strings, we're generating this, right? But the bitmap font is not that way. So this is still backwards for some reason. This one and this one. But why? Why though? I'm trying to think if there's anything in there that would cause that to act a fool, but I can't think of anything. Yeah. Matthias, that's yeah, my memory output is completely borked for some reason. I have no idea why. Oh, you're Tammin. Okay. It decided not to work for you over on Twitch. Okay. Vulkan crapping itself on logs. Yeah, it's fixed. No, it's not fixed. So I think what I was referring to is something else. But like this here is because we're trying to sample from a swap chain image, and I think it's the bitmap font atlas doing that. So what I'm gonna do, or actually, I wonder. Let me see something. There's definitely Vulkan problems that we have to. I mean, there's lots of problems we have to sort, right? But we've made decent headway tonight, at least. SUI label, and then we want like 195. Good luck with debugging. At least we can see a bit of it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're making progress, right? Because up until a while ago, this thing wasn't even running, right? So we went from not running to actually having stuff rendering. It's not perfect, right? But we're slowly gluing things back together. Asked the question last stream, but I totally forgot the answer. Did you say you were going to build separate tools similar to how the Source engine had the Hammer editor? I haven't decided yet, right? So there's like when it comes to tools like that, you can have like an all-in-one solution like Unity or Unreal do, right? Or Godot, where it's all sort of like an IDE kind of, um, where it's all one thing, or you can have separate utilities. I haven't really decided the way that I want to do that yet. And the first iteration of the editors that we're going to build is all going to be sort of built into the game at first, at least into the debug version of the first game that we make. And then once we have some decent tooling there, I'm going to strip those things out of the game and use those to make like an official set of tools. But yeah, that's kind of the plan there. Why are you flipping UVY and not using it? Was I not? I think I switched it back is why. Right. I think I switched that back. So I guess let me go into here and see what that breaks and see what it fixes. It should be interesting. So it completely broke the atlas and it broke the... How did it break both the atlas and the system font? Help me understand. Right? If I change it back, now these two work. But this image is upside down when it's loaded, and the font is not upside down. Brains exploding. Did I... Wait a minute. Did I do something in the vertex shader? I'm already flipping it in the vertex shader. So I don't need to flip it there. That was only a test anyways. So maybe that's fine. I think the real problem with the bitmap font not showing up is it's actually just pulling the wrong thing. I'm thinking what this is doing is just not correct. Like when we go ahead and create that, let's see. So font system, bitmap font atlas get. When we're only grabbing the first page's font because we only support one page for now. That's nothing new. So okay, I guess I need to put it here. All right, let's take a look at the handle. Yeah, that's the problem. Okay, so when we set up a bitmap font, think I know what the problem is. When we set up the bitmap font itself, before we actually request the texture, let's see, here is the texture system request, right? So before we actually do that, we probably need to go ahead and set its handle to invalid, right? That might be half of the problem, honestly. The texture system should probably be doing that. Oh, wait a minute. Wait. That's not quite... Release. Oh, it probably needs to be done in the texture system, maybe? Because that's going to reach out to the renderer. We need to do it before we reach out to the renderer, in other words. So there might not be the best place to do it. We probably need to go into here. Resource system request. And then when we load it, which is the callback, we're not providing a callback to that. Here. There's 3 spots that we do this. And this is what actually reaches out to the renderer and gets a proper handle. But the problem is if we don't pass it an invalid handle to begin with, it thinks it's a re-upload. So we probably ought to sort this at this level so that the user code doesn't have to worry about it. All right, so let's just put this, here. And we're going to do this. All right, so that's 1. We're already doing it here, so that's why half of our cases work. And we need to do it here as well. Because if we don't do that, then our handle is actually zeroed, which is technically valid, right? That's the swap chain image, essentially. And I think that's what's causing those Vulkan issues. So now when we look at this, and take a look at this handle here, we actually have an index and a unique ID. Okay, so that should be fixed. All right. So all the errors are gone if you didn't notice. The bitmap font is still not rendering correctly though, for some reason. And I'm beginning to wonder if we don't have, maybe we don't have blending turned on is the only thing I can kind of think of. Which is, I'm thinking the reason that these are showing up this way. Oops. Let's see, do we have blend enable? Is this just always on by default? That doesn't seem right. Trying to remember where I did this before. I guess I should probably. Let's undo that magenta change that we made. Oh, and I probably also need to. Try this again. Diffuse color. I don't think we're setting diffuse color correctly as part of the problem. Because that should be, we should be able to use that for like transparency and all kinds of stuff, right? That shouldn't be a problem at this level. Typed data color. Label internal data. So we're defaulting this to white. Then we also have SUI label color set. We are setting one of those labels to black, but fully opaque. Do we have a bollocksing in our logic here somewhere? So when we're creating this, I don't think I actually have changed this much at all. So we're creating like a black background text. And then like a text object over top of that, that's actually white, which is the default. So we don't actually set the color on that. I wonder if we have like a copy pasta thing going on here or something. Test text. Okay, I don't see anything here that looks wrong, or here. Test text, which is going to be this guy. So we just move it. Okay, we know all that's working correctly. Control panel create. That's the position. This is the color, right? So that's where we get that color from. So we set the color here. And then when we draw it, diffuse color, there it is right there. So we do set it in the render world, and that gets copied over later. So it's not that. The if-else tree, yeah, it's gross, I know. The reason for this is because we have to check along the way that each of these things succeeded. However, we don't have a configuration file for this. So eventually what we're going to do is we're going to set something up that's like, that looks like this, where we can nest stuff, or I guess, like this, right? We're going to set one of these up, and that's going to replace this tree. So I threw this in there quick, and it's gross just to test some stuff. This is literally test bed code, so I don't care if it's neat. But yeah, it's a reasonable call out for sure. Smudge, how's it going? Good to see you. All right. I'm really not understanding why I did notice before that there was an issue with one of these. Being wrong. But all of these look relatively correct. Okay, so so we basically build out all of the controls that we want to use, right? And then the button we add as a child to the test panel, which was also true for one of our later text objects, I think. Yeah, here. Test system text. Okay, so let me go back and diffuse color. So it's only here. So let me actually, I guess I'm going to try. I'm going to try doing that. I suspect that may be part of the problem. Or not. I'm going to have to capture that again. Because that should be hard-coded to white now. Because we shouldn't be passing anything else other than that, right? Let me double check. Let me double check the shader config. Yeah, we have a frame UBO, per frame UBO, that contains two matrices. So that's this. And then we have the per group UBO, which is what we were just looking at. That's 16 bytes because it contains a single, whoops, not that one. This one. It contains a single vector 4. And then per draw is 64 bytes because it contains A model matrix. Oh, I can get rid of this. That seems to work, by the way. I'm trying to discern why that doesn't. We should be able to just use this as is, right? Render doc it is. We need to see what's being brought in for that color. I usually add hack to not forget to remove those. Yeah. I do have that in here. I even have like a little thing there too. The other thing that I do also is I have a rule set up where if I tape no check-in and I go to check that code in, it won't actually allow me to do it. It'll bleat about it. Want to see how big is the diff for these changes? It's massive. I mean, I also changed a lot of assets. So that's a big part of it, right? You'll notice there's a lot of modifieds and deletes in here. I standardized the names of a lot of assets. So that's a big part of it. Eventually, we're going to be moving assets away from this. But yeah, it's pretty huge. Yeah, it's pretty huge. And wherever we wind up tonight is I'm going to go ahead and push that into the repo. Just so that I don't have this only on my machine, because that would be terrible if I lost it for some reason. All right. Anyway, render doc. Let's take a look at we want outputs. So I want highlight draw call. I think it was this one. I want to know why this guy is no longer showing. So let's go here. Texture coordinates look good. Oh, wait a minute. Am I? Yeah, okay. I want to see what the... Okay, so the sampled color is 1 across the board. That doesn't seem right. Diffuse color. Diffuse color is still that. What? That was in this one. Let's close that. Literally do not understand why it's doing that. And it looks like it's doing that across the board. All right. If I if I do, I guess it would be the render graph node I would need. Like, this is the only thing, unless I'm setting it to the wrong location. No? It's all ones. But by the time it makes it to the shader, it's not. Uniform offset. It's the first thing in that uniform that makes sense. Uniform size. And it's just a straight up memory copy. Help me understand this. I'm beginning to think that I'm like clobbering memory somewhere or something stupid. Or it could be an alignment issue. Although I don't see how. Like, this is the only thing in that binding. There's no alignment issue with this. There's no alignment issue with this. There's no alignment issue with this. This is a data transfer from the vertex shader. I'm pretty sure that that is going to be correct too. Yeah, it just sets it right here. And it's flipping those coordinates, and that's been in place for forever. I know that works. There's that. Good question. Graphics debugging is trying to fix something you changed a very small thing, and Wayland debugging is trying to understand why the performance is terrible. Yes. That's pretty well summed up there, yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything I haven't considered. I'm pretty sure the shader config is correct too, I believe. The vertex attributes are correct. SUI frame UBO. It's a struct, 128 bytes, 2 matrix 4s. Yep, that makes sense. There's the texture, there's the sampler, there's the texture, there's the sampler. And then the per draw is just this. It's not an alignment issue. It's just coming in wrong, I guess, for some reason. I'm going to have to figure that out. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Welcome. You know what else graphics programming is? Is banging your head against the desk for half an hour trying to figure out why something's doing something, and then walking away for 5 minutes and coming back and going, oh, there's this stupid issue. I don't think that's going to happen in this case, but you know what I haven't done in a while, though? I haven't done a clean build. You know what? I just saw something that could be affecting it. I saw this. Let's stick a breakpoint here. What is throwing this error? Debug console. Oh, I think this is where I found one of the foo bars where I was like using the wrong control somewhere. So the debug console is that thing that pops down from the top of the screen. We're registering it here. Why are we loading it twice? So we're creating the text control. Yeah, okay. That might have been... I wonder if that was doing it. Tends to be a small and inconspicuous line of code too. 100%, yep. Then you get the issue where it works on your GPU but not someone else's. Fun times. Yeah, Kohi's early days for sure. All right, I'm guessing we're doing a string comp on a null string. Wait a minute. This problem was here earlier today. These are all the text controls. Here's the entry text box. Let's make sure we don't have any duplicates there. Don't see anything. Text control. So maybe the internal data on this got boned somehow. Oh yeah. Look at that draw generation. It's not been rendered that many times. Also, these are gigantic. Yeah, this is rubbish data. Okay. Don't actually understand how call stack helps in debugging. You're talking about this here. So this allows me to view what functions were called as we're trying to debug, right? So here is where the exception was thrown, right? Which is basically just saying it can't access some memory. Now, this is a valid string, right? But if I hover over this guy, it's 0x18, which is saying it can't access that. That's like an invalid address. I could just tell you just because that valid addresses look more something like this, right? So for some reason, we're getting just garbage passed in for this string. So I'm like, okay, well, we know that's the issue at this level. So what we can do is we can step up. Well, what's the thing that called this? Okay, well, this is what called this. Okay, so we'll step up another level. Okay, we're trying to set a label text on something, and we're doing a strings equal call against that. And if we take a look at those two parameters, we have one that's a valid string, and we can see, oh, now our internal text is invalid, right? So we need to figure out why our internal text is invalid. Now, this happened during a update for the console. So I don't think anything going on here is going to be relevant. I think it's going to have something to do with the internals of the SUI label itself. But that's basically how it is, how it helps. Yeah, I hope that helps. Let's see. Been following the series, and in the beginning, you said you would cast void pointers inside the function, like platform window equals window. I can't remember how it is. My question is, will that leak memory? What I mean is, how you write safe C code by safe. I mean, will it leak memory even if you cast the right type? I mean, casting is not going to. The only time casting would screw up your, well, I mean, if you cast to the wrong type and write to the wrong type of, the wrong blocks of memory, that can screw things up. But it's probably not going to make you leak anything. It's just going to bone your data, basically. Basically, you just have to make sure that you delete the pointer whenever you go ahead and are done with it. So you need to know the size of memory that you want to allocate when you allocate it, but it doesn't matter when you go to free it. You just say free the pointer at this address, and it does it, right? So you don't really leak any memory that way, certainly not by casting. So casting is not really going to lead you to unsafe code in that manner, if that's what you mean. All right. Backtrace is good, but sometimes it's very confusing. Yeah. Agreed. All right. I do have to get up for work in the morning, so I think this is where we're going to put a pin in it. But what I am going to do is I'm going to push everything we have here because we've made a bunch of changes, right? So commit. I guess we should say asset renames, various bug fixes related to the asset resource refactor. And it is various bug fixes because it's all over the place, right? And then we'll push. Cool. So somebody was wondering, I don't remember who said it because the chat has scrolled away, but somebody was wondering what this is going to look like when we go to merge this. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to actually create a pull request, but to merge from this to 080, which is our current feature branch, as it were, or our current version branch, rather. Yeah. We have a few things, right? Does it give you like a total count anymore? So this refactor branch has 67 commits and has changed 526 files. Now, mind you, a lot of those files were just moved. And a lot of those are assets, and a lot of those actually need to be nuked too, because we have duplicate assets in a couple different places right now. So when we finish this refactor, we're actually going to be like cutting that number in like half. I think it only gives you, I don't know if there's a way to actually see like the total number of changes or not, but like it's big. I'm scrolling fairly fast here. And it's just given up loading diffs. But I mean, like I said, this includes assets too. So, yeah. It's going to wind up being a pretty hefty merge. And before we do that, I'm obviously going to have to test the crap out of this on all three platforms, which is going to be fun. Yeah, lots of red and green, exactly. Yeah, so we're getting awfully close to closing the loop on this, though. So that's definitely a good thing. All right, like I said, I do have to get up in the morning, so let me find somebody to raid. And before we kick off a raid, I do want to just say, thank you guys for being here. If you haven't followed already, I would encourage you to do so, because we are nearing the point where we're going to start making our game really soon with this. So that's super exciting. It looks like we're going to kick that off in the beginning of the year, next year. I don't think I'm going to be able to close the loop on this before the end of the month. If we do, cool. But with testing and everything considered, it's maybe. Regardless, I actually see somebody online that I don't think I've actually been able to raid this person yet. So we are going to be raiding Bad Cop. All right. So with that, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys, and we'll catch you in the next stream. Like I said, next week is probably, we're definitely not going to have a stream on Wednesday next week. Maybe Thursday. We'll have to see. But I might be able to do one over the weekend, maybe. So we'll see. I'll let you guys know. If you're not following me on X, do that, because that's where you'll be seeing those updates, as well as the server, the Discord server. Anyways, I'll catch you guys later. See ya.